Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mr. Mrrboss, and I'm sure this is like the 12th tutorial of the series. Yeah, 12, that's a very long way. Okay, so basically in this video, I'm going to be talking about if statements. I cannot stress the importance of if statements. All right, so basically, there are times where when we're writing code, we need to write code that can make a decision. When a certain condition is met, we want a certain branch of code to be executed. So in this case, in this video, I'm going to be explaining the importance of if statements, what if statements are, and also the disadvantages of if statements. And hopefully you guys will understand by the time I finish with this tutorial. All right, so there are certain times where we write a code and we want our program to execute a certain statement based on a certain condition. Like for instance, if x is equals to 5, we want our program to execute hello world. Or if x is equals to 5, we want our program to execute Mr. Mrrboss YouTube channel. All right, so all that is what we're going to be using the if statements for. So I'm going to go into examples later on in this video. However, first I want to go deeper into the whole ideology of if statements and also the implementations and stuff like that. So two things happen when you run an if statement. So the evaluation of the actual condition happens, which is the first thing that happens when you run if statements, and also the branch which depends on that if statements happens or is executed. Like for instance, the condition is going to be evaluated, and then after that condition has been evaluated, the branch which we want, or the statement which we want to be executed, is also going to be evaluated. All right, in other words, if our condition evaluates as true, we want our program to jump to a certain part of our source code. And if the evaluation is false, we need our program to jump to another section of our source code, which is also called a statement or an instruction. And these are often written inside the curly braces. I don't know if you remember from my previous videos where I explained all that. All right, because of all this branching, if statements makes one's code slower when executed. And when we go deeper into C++, one is going to notice that we consider the runtime of our code, which is a very important aspect when we're dealing with coding. You don't want to run a code, we don't want to write a code that is going to take hours for it to execute. We need code that is going to take a matter of seconds before it can execute. So when we are running our code, every second counts. Okay, so in this case, one of the biggest disadvantage of if statements is that since they deal with conditions and branches and all that, when our code is trying to decide on which branch to run or which condition to first evaluate and stuff like that, that sort of makes our code slower. It takes time before our code is actually executed, or our statement that we want to execute is executed. Okay, so how can we basically reduce this this increase in runtime, or how can we reduce the runtime? So if we want to reduce the runtime, we can basically reduce the number of if statements that we use. Please note that I didn't say that you can prevent yourself from using if statements. I said you can reduce. Like for instance, instead of you using a bunch of if statements in your code, what you can do is you can write maybe 1 or 2 if statements, and then from there you can write other things like functions, all those things in your code to just make your code much more interesting, much more unique and all that. So now I'm going to give you an example of an if statement. However, before I give you an example of if statement, I want to bring back a certain type of certain data type, and that is the Boolean. Boolean is a specific data type that deals with two values, true or false, 1 or 0. And that is what Boolean is basically. So I'm going to make use of that. In this case, I'm going to create a Boolean variable, and then from there I'm going to go on and write my if statements, and then hopefully by the time I'm done, you'll be understanding what I'll be doing. Okay. All right. So the syntax for writing if statements is, okay, let me just erase everything here. All right, so first thing first, to write a Boolean variable, you just need to write bool with double O. And then since I'm going to be doing comparison here, if statements deals with comparison and branching and stuff like that. So since I'm going to be doing comparison, I'm going to write a variable called comparison. Or let me just say comp or comparison is fine. Okay, so I've declared my variable, which is called comparison, of which it is of the data type Boolean. And then from there, I'm going to equate this to X, right? Then what I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to say X is equals to 7, right? So I think you can see that I used double equals to sign, and this is called an equality operator. And what this does is it says that X, check if X is equals to 7. It does not say X is equals to 7. It says, is X equals to 7? This says that comparison is equals to X. That is actually saying that if we were to write X in the place of whatever we're dealing with, it's going to equate to comparison. However, this double equals to sign actually says that is X equals to 7? It's a question. It's an equality operator. All right. So in this case, I'm saying whichever number we're going to be dealing with. If it's equals to 7, then it should output a certain output. And also it should tell us that it's true. If it's not equals to 7, it should output false in a certain statement. So I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to say, C out, and then I'm going to say enter a number X, right? And then after that, I'll just say end line. And then I'm gonna say cin X, right? And then what I'm gonna do afterwards is I'm basically gonna now I'm gonna write my if statement, and this is the syntax: if open and close brackets. So what I'm gonna do is inside my if statement, I'm gonna put comparison, right? So I'm gonna say if comparison, if comparison, open and closing braces, and then inside these braces, I'm basically gonna put the statement which I need to be executed, right? So I'm gonna say C out, I am Mr. Mrrboss, right? And then I'm gonna close the inverted commas, and then I'm gonna say end line semicolon. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and then I'm gonna run this code. Let's see what is gonna happen. Okay, so it's saying that X was not declared in this scope. Let's see what is the problem here. Yeah, I'm supposed to say this. So I'm supposed to say that bool comparison is equals to X, of which is X is equals to comparison, right? And then right here, I'm gonna say int X. Yeah, this is supposed to be perfectly fine. So let me run my code and let's see. Okay, so now my code is running perfectly, which is basically what I expected to do. Remember what I said, debugging is part of the process. So if you're going to be facing problems, don't panic, don't start running around sweating and all that. Just go over your code and try to fix whatever problems it might have. All right, so I'm just waiting for it to like execute. So it says that enter a number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the number 7, and then I'm going to say enter, right? And then I can see that it didn't execute anything. Now the question is, why did it not execute anything when x is equals to 7? All right, so let's just go over our code one more time. Okay, remember what I said, our code runs from top to bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this and then I'm gonna shift it to this part of my program, right? To this part of my program, and then I'm gonna move down. Let me just remove the space over here. Now let's run our code and let's see what is gonna happen. Okay, it says enter a number, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna enter the number 7. Then I'm gonna say enter. And then I think you can see now it says I am Mr. Mrrboss. Why does it say I am Mr. Mrrboss now? It's because x is indeed equals to 7, meaning that it's gonna execute this statement over here, which says I am Mr. Mrrboss. So at first, why did it not execute why did it not execute the statement I am Mr. Mrrboss when I actually ran it? When this cout enter a number x is c in x was below this. The reason for that is, I think I remember telling you, I think it was like in the second tutorial or something like that, I explained that C++ runs from the top going down. So meaning that now that my entire number and everything is above the bool comparison, it actually allows for my program to say, okay, fine, after I've entered my number, let's say for instance, I enter 7 or I enter 6, it's going to take that number, which I've entered above here, and then it's going to put it in the place of x, and then says, is x equals to 7? And then from there, it's going to say 7 is equals to 7, and that statement is true, and then it's going to execute this block of code over here. All right, so now let me run this code again, and then let me enter a number that is not equal to 7, and then let's see what is going to happen. Right, okay, let's just, okay, let me enter a number that is not equal to 7. Let's say, for instance, I enter the number 6, and then I say enter. So I think you can see that there was nothing that was executed, and the reason for that is because 6 is not equals to 7, right? So what it did is this, it took that number 6 and then it placed it in the place of x over here, and then it's okay, fine, is 6 equals to 7? And then the answer is no, which is false. And then yeah, and then it outputted the statement nothing, because it's not equals to 7. All right, so that is it on if statements. And then in the next video, I'm basically going to be explaining if else statements. How does if else statements work? I'm going to go through it, and also the syntax of if else statements, and also the disadvantages and advantages of using if else statements. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.